Hello everyone, welcome back to another YouTube video. All right, I've done this video multiple times and I keep redoing it because I want to make sure that my message is clear and positive at the end of the day, regardless of my experience. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to start off with pros and then get into the cons of taking an expat assignment with an international role and whether it's the right choice for you, for your career, and for your life. I think at the end of the day, everybody needs to really take a look at themselves, look in the mirror, and make that decision on their own. I don't think watching a video on my experience can really help you make your choice. I think it's a data point, but I really encourage you to sit down with your family and look inward and whether it's worth taking this kind of assignment, because it does come with a fair bit of challenges, but it's also a great opportunity to grow in your career, but also personal wise. And so a lot of the questions that I get on Villahermosa is because they're most likely going to move there, they got an assignment, or their spouse is getting transferred there. And so I wanted to focus a little bit on the city because I know when we were moving there, we couldn't find a lot of information on the city, except for a few people who had maybe lived there or lived there that can help me out to kind of understand a little bit more into where I was going to move to, because I also couldn't find a lot of pictures and videos online. And so at the end of this video, I'll post a few pictures and videos that I took while I was there, just to give you a little bit of an understanding of what to expect. So first, Villahermosa is in a state called Tabasco at the very south of Mexico. The heat is extreme. And I remember getting this kind of comment from a few people. And I was like, listen, I live in Houston. Yeah, like it's very hot. I'm okay. But I've never felt this kind of extreme heat in my life. And it's very unbearable in a way where like you don't even want to go walk outside. And so that part was very difficult to adapt. And also the heat is just extreme at all times of the day. So you can go outside at 10 o'clock at night and it's extremely hot. And so those are just a few things that you need to be aware of when you're moving there. If you're someone that really doesn't like the heat, this is not the place for you. And so just consider the temperature. It is sunny almost the entire year, long hours. So, if you like the sun and you like that kind of stuff, that's a perfect weather for you. In terms of infrastructure, I would say it's a very underdeveloped city in a way. I was quite shocked just because of the money that there is there, because there's so many industries and so many companies that work there, tons of expats, etc. You would think that they would put a little bit more money into the city, but it is very underdeveloped in my opinion. The streets need a lot of work. The housing is not I believe where it should. It's not very nice. The towns that you can find and just the little neighborhoods, it was very hard to find a good place for us to live. For those reasons, there's not a lot of neighborhoods. And so a lot of the expats or a lot of the people who work in the different kind of, let's say, oil field service companies, they all kind of live in the same pocket. So it's very overpopulated in those pockets. And there's just a few places like Zona Country or the El Country. It's very nice, and that's where I would say the majority of the people live. There's also Valles del Jaguar, which you can all Google all these places if you're trying to find a place. And then we lived in a small fraccionamiento called Las Hadas, which in my opinion is one of the nicer ones. You have a lot of beautiful homes in there, probably $1 million plus. I would say is the kind of neighborhood that is. And it's a lot of expats, and it's a lot of just owners of different businesses in Villahermosa. I would say there is maybe 50 houses there. And then I heard there was another neighborhood down the road called Entre Ceibas, but I didn't know anybody who lived there. But when you would peek through the gates, it looked really beautiful, but I'd never met anybody who lived there. So if you're looking into something a little bit more luxurious or a little bit nicer, I would say those are kind of the two neighborhoods that you want to look into. In terms of again on groceries / infrastructure, believe it or not, that those are things that I cared about when I was moving, is like, what is there to shop? And so there is a Costco, which I was very pleasantly surprised because it just felt like home a little bit when you want specific items that you can only find in the US or in Canada. You're kind of feeling homesick because you want a specific item. Costco is there, so it's a lifesaver. They also have 2 or 3 Sam's Club, which I would go to a lot. And then they have your typical Walmart. They have their own kind of grocery stores called Chedraui, Soriana, and just a few other kind of very local Mexican grocery stores. So in terms of food, etc., tons of variety, etc. I would say if you're an extracurricular person and you like to do a lot of activities, Vija does have quite a bit of things to do. So, for example, there is a lot of tennis, paddle, there's soccer leagues, there's baseball leagues, there's a golf place where you can play golf. There is quite a bit of things that you can kind of get involved in the community and do. For us, our biggest thing has always been fitness. And so for us, it was a gym. They do have quite a bit of nice gyms. They have Smart Fit, which is where we went. Really nice new equipment. It's a branch, so there's several ones within Mexico and even in Latin America. So if you have a membership there, you can kind of go to different parts of Mexico and use your membership. There was your general like big chains that you can find in the US. I don't remember the name of, I think like Anytime Fitness is what it's called. And then you have a few smaller kind of local gyms. So in terms of that, there is your regular gyms there if you're wondering. What else can I talk about with the city? There is an international airport, which is most likely where you're going to arrive. It's very small. We're talking about maybe 3 gates, 4 gates. There is local airlines that travel there. I would say the major one is Aeromexico, where you can fly to almost all of Mexico from there. And they have Viva Aerobus, which is kind of like their second tier airline. So in terms of traveling, it's pretty easy through the airport that's there. And I would say part of the cons of taking an international role is the experience that you can gain from working in a new culture, new team, new language, new customer, just new sets of challenges. It is definitely something that you're going to leave stronger. And it's just a lot of character building when you're going into a new country with just a different type of culture and a just different way of working. And so I would say that the positive is that you're going to gain a lot of experience that you can also kind of showcase on your resume, or that you can later on use to get ahead in your career and say, like, I worked in Mexico, I had this expat role for a few years. And, you know, I think people really value that expat experience, in my opinion. Um, More of the random city things, they're really big into chocolate and coffee. I would say they grow a lot of it there in Villahermosa. The restaurant scene is fantastic. If there's anything that you will do in Villahermosa is eat, because I found there wasn't that many things to do, in my opinion, of things that I enjoyed to do there. So restaurants and trying new food and like that culinary experience is definitely there. So watch out in terms of gaining a lot of weight because the food is really good. And I would say they're really big into the restaurant scene. And I think it's because it's a big expat community. And there's also not that much to do, even though I did say there was quite a bit of things to do. There isn't that much to do compared to other cities. And so going out to eat, going out for drinks, kind of that social life, I would say is what a lot of people do, since it is an oil town and it is small. And so people kind of focus on the kind of just get-togethers and, you know, have fun around food and drinks. So that's kind of what I could talk about the city. I'll show a few videos, like I said. Now, getting a little bit more into my experience, personal experience, because I do get that question a lot on whether you should take this role as well, or should I also move to Villahermosa? So what I will say is everybody needs to really make that decision for themselves and figure out whether it's the right time in your career and life to take such a big leap of faith, because it is. You're changing your entire world, your entire environment. You're selling your house, you're packing your bags, you're moving your entire family and your house, your household goods, your pets to a new country, to a new environment that you may thrive in and love, but you may also face a lot of challenge and not necessarily be happy with the change. And then what? You're in another country and you're basically stuck. And so I really recommend that you take the time to not only talk to some of your peers that have lived there, but try to reach out to people online that live there or that have lived there, and just kind of network a little bit and get different insight from different people, and not just the people in your organization who may sugarcoat it in a certain way. And so I think, yes, watching a video on Villahermosa will help, but at the end of the day, you kind of got to gather all that information and make it the right choice for you. So, in terms of my personal experience, I didn't have the greatest experience when I first arrived. I would say for the first 6 months, it was really hard for me to adapt to the new culture, the new way of just how people worked. And that was the hardest part for me. I think also I thought that because I was born in Colombia and because I consider myself a Latino, I would have a lot of an easier time to blend in with the community. But then I realized that at the end of the day, I'm not as Latino as I thought. And just because I speak Spanish or I look Latino doesn't mean that I have the roots inside of me, because I did grow up my entire life in Canada and I've only had worked up to that point in the US and in Canada. So I really was a stranger to them when I arrived. And so it does take a little bit of time for a new location to feel like home. And I think I wanted to make home right away. I wanted to make this work. I wanted to feel at home. I wanted to feel like I was part of the community right away. And I think that's something that I learned, is that sometimes a new assignment will take you months before you can start feeling like you're blending in, before you start feeling like you're part of the community, before people start accepting you into their group, and also for your house to just feel like home. And for some people, it takes 6 months. Some people, it takes a year. Some people, it'll never feel like home. And some people could be really quick. After a few weeks, they just feel like this is their town. So all the experiences are going to be different. For me and my family, it took a really long time for us to feel a little bit like this was starting to become like home. I would say for the first 6 months, it was extremely difficult, like I said, in terms of like the work culture. And I just wasn't as happy with the assignment and with the decision that I had made. I really regretted taking the assignment and wished I would have stayed in Houston. But at the end of the day, now that I've did my time, I was there for a year and a half and I came back. I'm so thankful that I got that opportunity to go and that I did it. And then now I'm on the other side, because I grew a ton professionally, but also personally. And I also think my husband and I, we always joke, but we say we're stronger now as a family unit after having gone on an international assignment, just because of how many challenges we had to overcome as a family, that now we just, we're stronger. We're like, okay, we could take on really anything. And so you kind of just have to take a look and see whether you want to put your family through that, because it is difficult if you're moving with children, right? I had a 9-month-old when I first moved, and it is hard when you don't have a lot of family and friends that maybe have children your age, or you don't have that community of people who have small children. For my own experience, my mom moved with me, and so that was amazing because at least I had a support system at home. But for many people, that's not the case. And so you're moving to a new country with a young family. That could be daunting, and it could also be very hard because there's nobody around you that you can kind of have that support. It does take a village. And so if you don't have that village and you're leaving, where your friends and family are, that could be very difficult. In my opinion, I think it's also difficult when your spouse doesn't work for the company and they are there to support you and kind of to be there for your career, and they don't necessarily work. So there's a lot of wives who go and they don't have a lot to do. They're new to the country. They don't have a lot of friends. So it takes them a long time to kind of rebuild those relationships and help support you while you are going to an office and you kind of have your own little family of where you work. For my case, my husband is a very successful entrepreneur. And so for him, it was a huge sacrifice to come to Villahermosa and support me in my career. Luckily, he could work from home, but he also had to travel a lot to his headquarter office in Canada. And so it was a balance of he was doing it for my career and helping out, but it was also a struggle for him because he had a business to run and it was very hard to do it from a small little oil town in Mexico. And so as you could see, my experience was difficult, but I think a lot of it stemmed from just the inconveniences of our family having relocated to a small town in Villahermosa when a lot of our network and a lot of my husband's business was in the US and in Canada. And so, like I said, you have to sit down with your family, with your spouse, and with your kids and figure out, like, is this worth it for us as a family, for the growth of my career or for your career or for your spouse's career? So these are all conversations that you have to sit down and have. And sometimes they're hard because maybe you want to take this international assignment and you know that this is right for your career, but maybe your spouse who works for a different company or has something else going on, it may clash with their dreams or with their goals. And so it's really important that you sit down, and it needs to make sense for both. And so that's kind of my experience living and working in Mexico. I would say another of the positive things from being an expat is you get to travel quite a bit because you have a good amount of vacation days that you're allowed, and you also have a travel allowance. I don't know how it works with all companies, but you do get a good amount of money for your kids, for your spouse, etc., to go back home to your country and visit your family. But really, you can use that money to go travel anywhere you'd like. And so we did a lot of traveling. We went to Cancun, we went to Los Cabos, we went to San Miguel de Allende, we went to Mexico City, we went to Mérida, we went to Veracruz, we went to Monterrey. So I used as much as I could to travel Mexico, learn the culture, and I absolutely loved it because it's such a beautiful, rich country filled with so many talented individuals. If anything, I would say some of the hardest working people that I've ever had to work with have been in Mexico. I mean, their work ethic is very high. And so I met just such amazing people. I created so many good friendships. And so that's also part of the international experience that I think is positive, is that you get to meet people from around the world. And now you have friends kind of in different countries and all over the place. And so, like I said, when I first arrived, the first 6 months were extremely difficult. I was so unhappy. But then the next 12 months, I was extremely happy to be there because I had such a good team. And so shout out to Francisco Nunez and Pablo Lyon because they made my experience just so beautiful and amazing that it really kind of changed my perspective compared to the first 6 months. And so I guess all I want to say at the end of the day is that what's really going to make your experience or your move fantastic is a good set of leaders and a good team to work with, because you can go anywhere in the world in the best beautiful city and has all the amenities in the world, but you don't have a good team to work with, you're going to be unhappy. You can go to the crappiest town in the world and have the best team, and you're going to absolutely love that town and love your experience there. And so I think a lot of it has to do with just the people you surround yourself with and the people that you're lucky enough to work with. And so I encourage you to do take a risk, get out of your comfort zone. It could work out, it could not work out. It's all up to kind of just the environment, and luck plays into it, whether your role is going to make, be good or not. But I think it's worth taking that risk. High risk, high reward. And one thing I will note is a lot of the people that I've seen take international roles or go to places like Mexico, you are showing the company that you can handle change, adapt, work with new cultures, with new customers. And those experiences are very valuable for a company. So if your goal is to continue to grow in a career in a big international company, being an expat is very valuable. And so I would consider this a really good opportunity if you are getting that offer letter. But just know that it's not rainbows and butterflies, and it's going to be very challenging, not only culture wise, feeling like homesickness and like wanting to go back to like what you're used to, and then also just the culture shock of just how different countries work, how different customers work, and their working hours. Every country has a different kind of work-life balance. I will say Mexico needs to work on their work-life balance. They're very aware of it, and they have really great leadership now that's looking into how do we make it better. And so I'm very positive for the outlook of Mexico. And so if you are getting an assignment there, try it out. It's not forever. It's a few years out of your career. And at the end of the day, you can look back and think, that was great, or that sucked, but I did it and I got over it and I learned a lot. And so I hope this video kind of helps you out a little bit. I feel free to email me. I'll put my email on the box below. I know I get tons of questions about Villahermosa specifically, and so feel free to send me a message, and I hope this video helped a little bit in your data research. All right, well, if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you on the next video.